911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal, or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my sensor light came on, and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man, or something that looks like a man. I don't know what it was, just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Dio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Okay.
You're listening to Sasquatch Experience, the podcast. The classic Bigfoot podcast has returned with Sean Forker and Henry May. The show starts now. And welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. I'm Sean, the Fort Chop Forker, joined by Henry May and Vance Nesbitt. Les Sinkovich couldn't make it tonight, so we're going to go to Plan B, and Plan B is always BSing about Bigfoot. And we have an awful lot to talk about because there's been some good shows, Henry, that have been on recently, and I'm just anxious to hear your take on them.
Well, I really enjoyed the recent Ancient MonsterQuest episode that was on. Kathy and Bob Strain were part of that one, also Jerry Hine. And an individual who worked with Dr. Jane Goodall was also part of that one. So it was really good. And they mostly talked about what is more considered of an aggressive Bigfoot, which has sort of surfaced in recent years. Although reports of this go back millennium, thousands of years, I guess. So
yeah, no, I was able to watch it through my Watch AT&T app because I became one of those, cord cutters. So, and doing so, I was able to get a really nice presentation, and I really enjoyed it. One, I love seeing Bob and Kathy, good people, great researchers.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the presentation they did on this. Jerry Hine was on there. It was good to see him.
Yeah.
You don't see Jerry featured in an awful lot of these documentaries, but, again, all the cave work and everything that was done, the artwork in the caves, that was presented very well. I think overall as a presentation, if they keep churning out episodes like this, Ancient MonsterQuest is going to turn out to be even better than the previous incarnation.
I agree. Do you know who narrated it?
Donnie Wahlberg, of all people.
Donnie Wahlberg, New Kids on the Block and Blue Bloods.
Yeah, and he wasn't obnoxious.
Hey, now, I will be completely honest with you. Donnie lives 2 miles from me.
Oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. His wife, Janie McCarthy, grew up here, so she moved back home. They bought, of course, a massive place, and yeah, Donnie Wahlberg's part of the neighborhood now. Anyway, didn't want to get sidetracked. Sorry, guys. Continue. That's who did the narration, though, huh?
Yeah. You could tell him he did a decent job, too, which I expected it to be a lot more accented, if you catch my drift, but it was pretty well done. Then we move on to Expedition Bigfoot, which wrapped up. I have to tell you, Henry, overall, presentation was okay. It wasn't earth-shaking, nothing groundbreaking. Kind of same old when it goes to Bigfoot TV. But I don't know. It seemed like it wound down a little bit and became less, I don't want to say interesting, because I thought the drone into the cave system was pretty cool. But it kind of let you down a little bit in the end. I don't know if you felt the same way. It has nothing to do with the people involved in the show. It just wasn't exactly the most compelling, exciting TV.
Well, that's true. I mean, but obviously you're not going to find Bigfoot through a television show. I mean, Finding Bigfoot proved that. They didn't find Sasquatch, and although there was some interesting footage at the end of the season finale, it could just as well have been a hiker or a hunter or something.
Yeah, are you talking about the thermal images that Russ got?
Well, no, there was the footage that Bright looked at after.
Yes, when they did the wrap up when
they
they
were
were in L.A.
Right, when they did the wrap up.
Yeah. So, and you're absolutely right. It could have been. It was still kind of interesting, though, was it not? Like, and I guess that's, Henry, one of the big things that I still love and detest about Bigfoot footage is that you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's the catch-22, but I guess deep down inside, part of me just, I don't know. I guess I don't want any of this stuff to be real in terms of footage. Like, because once we get real footage, it's going to be game over time for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would like to ask both of you a question.
Sure.
Today I listened to the ITF Into the Fray Radio Insiders edition of Bigfoot of Yellowstone, or whatever that's titled. It's the latest episode. But in that interview that Shannon was doing, this individual came across unusual tracks and deemed them not to be snowshoe tracks, but that there had been a lot of sightings around Yellowstone National Park. And of course, he brought up that Old Faithful video with, 5 beans, and then Thinker Thunker did his take on it as far as size comparison. And whatever those images are, they're big and they're bipedal. What's your take on that video?
Well, it's one of those. Is it people or is it Sasquatch? I mean, we really don't know for sure. What they should have done was had a group of 5 individuals walk out in that area to make a comparison video. That I always stress that you should always make a comparison video. Just like with this recent Washington State Department of Transportation footage, which I think is a person in a snowsuit walking up a hill.
More often than not, there aren't a lot of comparative analysis done after the fact. And, like you said, Henry, it's so important that gets done so there could be actual scale to things.
And also you can rule out whether it is a person or it is an actual Sasquatch.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one important reason why that should be done.
There are more people that do size comparison in a witness encounter and not enough done in video encounters. And I do agree. There are in some cases where I've seen the video shot and then they go over to the branch in which it walked under, and okay, the branch was 9 feet off the ground. Yeah, it still could have been a hoax, and chances are it might have been. In this case, I thought I heard a rumor to the fact that there were people that did go out there to try to follow, but it's off limits to hikers. There's signs posted everywhere because it is too close to the geysers. So to get back out there to do a size comparison was difficult, but I think I remember hearing an attempt of that to be done so that at least it would answer the question as far as the perspective of where that camera is mounted on the hotel there, looking down over the geyser, and then those images in the background. At least you have distance, and mathematically through geometry, which I sucked at, be able to figure out if that was the correct size or not, or if it was taller. They looked big. I mean, like I said, Thinker Thunker did his routine on it, whatever you may think of the guy, but at least in perspective of the size of the buffalo compared to those, whatever they were walking, there was a huge difference. I mean, these things were equally the size of a buffalo if they bent over on all fours. So pretty heavy duty looking suit if that's the case. A massive snowsuit with stilts in it or something. I don't know. I don't know what lengths people will go through to create a hoax and for what. They ain't making money off of it.
No, but it does throw us off our game, and it does keep people in a state of confusion about what's real and what's not. And in turn, does that uncertainty and confusion create more chaos in the realm of research? I don't know. I guess that's another conversation. And I don't know if you guys follow phantomsandmonsters.com, our buddy Lon Strickler's blog, but over the last few days, he's had a ton of Bigfoot information and stories come in. I mean, absolutely incredible. If you want, I'll go ahead and read one of them here quick. if you guys are okay with that. Henry, you all right?
Oh,
with that?
absolutely.
Sounds good to me.
And again, this comes from phantomsandmonsters.com. Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. Bigfoot Wildman Encounters in Pennsylvania is the name of the article. And here goes one. 3 Amish men were working in their field near Strasburg in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, when an odd-looking man approached them from the direction of a neighboring farm. The man was yelling and jumping about. The Amish men were alarmed and noticed that this man had arms, legs, and a face that seemed different, more animal than human. He had coarse, dark hair on his limbs and face and wore what appeared to be a dark-colored, tattered pair of old-style boxer shorts. As the man-creature approached closer, he was yelling something, but it was not understood by the men. The men ran towards the house. The man-creature was right behind them. One of the Amish men ducked into the dairy barn, and the other 2 immediately went into the house. An elderly Amish woman who had been in the garden came to see what was going on. When the man-creature saw her, it suddenly stopped running, sat down on the grass, and remained quiet while staring at the sky. The men came out of the house, and one of them slowly walked over to the man-creature and attempted to talk to it. The man-creature continued to look at the sky, but started to mumble. The man and woman noticed that a horrible stench permeated from this creature and described it as rotting flesh. After several minutes, the creature got to its feet and started to walk towards the dairy barn. As it did, the witness noticed that the creature started to fade away. Eventually, it completely disappeared from view just before it reached the barn. Shocked, the Amish witnesses dropped to their knees, not knowing what they'd witnessed. So that was a little bit of a different story. What do you think of that, Henry?
Now, when they say it disappeared, do they mean that it literally vanished in front of their eyes, or they're talking about something different?
Well, and that's where it says fade away in quotation marks here. So I'm assuming it was almost like a cascading type vanishing effect.
I'm still kind of hung up on the fact that it's wearing tattered shorts.
Absolutely.
Or boxers. That's the creepy thing. And I've heard, stories in the past where the thing's wearing a ripped up flannel shirt. That could just paint a whole page of nope for me to see something like that. Don't be wearing clothes. Because that immediately snaps the intelligent level right there. That it knows what to do with it and put them on.
Interesting.
Out of observation.
Well, there are several older reports of individuals claiming that they've seen these things wearing clothes. And Mike Rugg from the Bigfoot Discovery Museum in Felton, California, said that the one he saw was attempting to wear a button-down shirt. So, what are we to make of these cases?
Well, you think about that, though, guys. They encounter us wearing clothes. So over time, do you think it would not be, whether it's an overintelligence or understanding the purpose of it, they just put it on because they see us wearing these things?
Well, I think that's a really good point, Sean. And that's what I meant by that snaps it right there, that the creature would be intelligent enough and conscious enough to be able to see something and try to mimic it that way by putting on clothes. And look, I still see people when I travel west on my daily routine. I'm out in the corn desert. In the spring and summertime, I still see people hanging their clothes out on clotheslines, grab a couple of things off the clothesline and then put it on, try it out, see if it works. What's the purpose? Maybe it's trying to figure out what's the purpose of this stuff. Look, if I found some gray alien's cool suit, I would certainly take it and see what it is. And can I wear it? What? It's curiosity. But it takes an intelligence in order to be curious that way, to actually physically try something. And not many animals will do that. They may check it out, but it serves them no purpose. With here, you're talking a bipedal creature that has 2 arms, 2 legs, and knows, well, yeah, this is where this would go, and I'll put these on and know how to put them on. That takes intelligence.
Monkey
and
see,
it's
monkey
creepy,
do.
though. Yeah, it's just creepy, though, to think about. Even seeing, like, chimpanzees dressed up in clothes for acts. It's just creepy looking.
And in Pennsylvania, it's not uncommon to have some of these more esoteric situations with these Bigfoot creatures. This is a weird state when it comes to Bigfoot, and I've said it many times. If there's a state to try to prove there's another facet to these creatures, Pennsylvania is the one where it's at. because half
Oh,
the people
absolutely.
that see him with some sort of strange phenomena. But what's even more telling is that this is done by, witnessed by the Amish.
But the point is, with that lifestyle and that dynamic of what it is that entire culture does, and then to bring this creature in and share that story doesn't bring any technology to it. What would be the point that it's Amish people? And that's a great point to bring up. That's a whole different dynamic as to that happening to that group of people. Not that it can't happen to any group, but specifically with the Amish, and for them to share the story that way, it is strange. And you're absolutely right, Sean. I mean, your hometown, you live right in the hot spot there, so kudos to you. But there seems to be a lot more of the ultra dimensional aspect to the Bigfoot sightings there. Just like you read, it faded away. In quotation marks, yeah, does that mean that it just kind of slowly dissipated and vaporized? Did it go off into a craft that, who knows? We're going to go down that road again, but let's stick with flesh and blood first and then work our way outside of that box.
Well, right, and that was
it's flesh and blood.
Kind of the takeaway from our last episode was, let's just prove it exists first, and then once we can prove it exists, start going down the list of what it is and what it isn't.
Right. Yeah, it's very important.
Henry, any final thoughts on that little report there? I've got one more from the same article.
Well, unless I see a Sasquatch disappear in front of my eyes, I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm not trying to impugn the credibility of the Amish. I'm not trying to say that they're lying, or I'm not saying that at all. I'd have to see it for myself.
Oh, absolutely. And I think with all things we talk about, guys, to our listeners, let's be clear, as we talk about it, understand that we're not advocating one way or another. We're just kind of putting the stories out there as they come through. And I guess that's all I can say about it. Like, I'm not saying this is what happened. This is what's in the report. Since I've got the article up here, let me read there's 3 of them here. I'm just going to read one more. So this next encounter from the same article, phantomsandmonsters.com, February 4th, 2010. In the mid-1980s, I was privy to an encounter that occurred not too far from State College, Pennsylvania, which, guys, by the way, about an hour west of me. A 19-year-old local resident happened to be looking out his bedroom window, which provided an excellent view of a pasture just west of his house. It was early morning, about 6:30 a.m., but there was plenty of light to see clearly. He was in the process of getting ready to work. When he looked out the window, he noticed a tall, hairy creature walking in the pasture coming from the north. The creature was taking long, smooth strides, and its arms moved back and forth as a human would. It did not appear to have a neck, but capable of turning its head as it was constantly looking around. Except for the face, the creature was entirely covered with brown or black, medium-length hair. The witness was able to see the face and noticed that the forehead protruded distinctly. Also, it appeared that the nose was wide and pushed close to the face. The height was approximately 8 feet. As the witness observed, the creature continued walking around until it was south of the house. Suddenly, the creature stopped walking when the witness noticed two other similar creatures join with it. Both were about 1 foot shorter than the first. At this point, one of the creatures reached down and picked up a piece of lumber that was part of a new shed being built. The creature started walking swiftly towards the house until it was within 50 feet of the residence. It stopped suddenly, made a few grunting sounds, and glared towards the window from where the witness was watching. The witness ducked and crawled to the far end of the bedroom. After a few minutes, the witness got up and looked out the window. The creatures were gone. Later that day, the witness and a friend discovered large, unusual tracks in the pasture. It is not known if this incident was ever reported, but I do know that at least one local police officer knew what had happened and confirmed it with them. He seemed to be convinced that the witness was upstanding and honest, but very private. The witness did move away from the area not long after the encounter, fearing that the creatures would harm them. How about that? That was a pretty interesting sighting.
Mm-hmm. And my takeaway from that is I think that may be the motive as to why these creatures would do something like that. It's intimidation. This is my spot too. And look what happened. I mean, the witness felt uncomfortable and moved. I think that's probably, it might not be so much aggression as it is intimidation. It's time to leave. Look at how many stories we hear of house slaps.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's really all it is. I don't know that there's going to be a confrontation. Not to say that there hasn't been, because clearly there has been, but I think out of 100, probably 98 is just intimidation. You need to leave. Yeah, I would follow those orders. Yeah, absolutely. Something 8 foot tall? No, I'll pack my bags. I'm out.
One thing that I was interested in was the neck movement.
Absolutely.
A lot of witnesses who see these things say, well, it appeared to have no neck, or a bull neck, as they call it. But they do have a neck. I mean, even if you look at the Patterson-Gimlin film, the way she moved, she appears to move her neck, or move with her neck, but she also, of course, has to turn her entire torso to look back at Patterson and Gimlin.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, as Grover Krantz pointed out years ago, an ape's jaw is much deeper than a human. Humans, we can just go right over our shoulder, look right over our shoulder. Apes can't do that. They have much deeper jaws. So, if they want to turn to look off to their right or their left, their jaw runs into their shoulder. Well, that means they have to turn the entire torso.
Well, and that's a really good point, Henry, because a lot of these reports that we get share those common characteristics, right? And, you use the term ape. It's what I firmly believe this creature is. There are a lot of people out there that don't agree. A lot of people out there think this is some sort of primitive man. And it really depends on the type of sightings you get. I think there is an understanding among some researchers, including myself, that maybe we're looking at several different types of creatures lumped into one group that we generically call Sasquatch Bigfoot because they share some characteristics. But, more often than not, that report, like you said, Henry, that bull neck, you can't move the head or independent of the shoulders. That's a common characteristic. In fact, as I'm describing it, I just did the same thing, put my head up with my neck and then turn my whole, because that's how it happens. Biologically, that's how it works out for these things.
And we've all done it too, because all of us have suffered a stiff neck. So you have to turn your shoulders in order to see what's going on next to you. Absolutely. Because it hurts. And it's a very natural way to look around. If you cannot move your head is freely on the neck, because clearly of the proportion of the head to the shoulders, that's how you would look around. You would swing the shoulders and move the neck slightly, but you're swinging those shoulders to look around. And, I will reiterate, there's a lot of reports that do say that as it looked, it turned its upper body to look towards me, because it's very unusual. I mean, we see, people that'll turn their heads and look at other people. We see that all the time and don't think anything of it because it's a natural ebb and flow of physical trait that we have that we're capable of doing. Whereas a creature like that, it's very noticeable. So I do find that credible, at least a credible point brought up in the witness testimony.
Hopefully shuffling my headphones didn't distract you there. I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
But what I wanted to say is, with this line of thought, not even recently, but it's becoming apparent to me because some of my close or research friends slowly changing their mind as to what they believe this thing is because of some of the behaviors. I keep getting messages, this ain't no ape. And I just wish I could commit myself to that belief, but I don't know. I don't want to say it's not man-like because of its intelligence level. That's not what I'm saying at all. But just because something has intelligence doesn't mean it's human or human-like. And I think when you look at this and when you look at the collection of data, to me, it more than overwhelmingly points to some sort of ape. Henry, go ahead.
Well, one thing that Robert Michael Pyle pointed out on the documentary, it was Bigfoot's Reflection, as a matter of fact, was that all men are apes. We are
Absolutely.
apes. So it's, it's really irrelevant whether you call them human or ape because we are primates. So they would definitely, even if Sasquatch do turn out to be more human, they're still primates. They're still apes. In within that genus, they're still within the genus of ape, even if they turn out to be Homo erectus or Homo whatever.
I still think when you break it down and look at the behaviors, you see these things acting in more of an ape-like manner than a human-like manner. And that's just my belief. I think when you look at the data, you don't see it walking up, verbalizing, shaking hands, unless you lived on the Carter farm.
Oh,
it just doesn't happen. And, well, Henry, you know how I feel about that. I haven't changed my opinion in 15 years. But
I know.
it's just these things, to me, still speak more animal than human. And regardless, even when you look at the facial descriptions of people, and I said this last night, Vance, on an episode we did that's never going to air, unfortunately, with our friends over at Into the Fray. We lost the audio on that. Plenty of video, but no audio. Even with dogmen, Henry, like these reports, I think the mind starts reconciling what it wants to see and what's comfortable with instead of actually applying logic. So when you're in this stressful situation and you see something, and because it's walking upright, are you more comfortable with it being man-like or more comfortable with it being ape-like? And does your brain trigger you to see that? Rather, is that what you're truly seeing, or is what your brain's comparing it to, right? Because our brain only puts things together like that. Like it instantly tries to recognize what it is you're seeing and applies it to the most logical or comfortable thought to your thought patterns. And maybe I didn't explain that as well as I did last night, Vance. But it's like I said, same with the dog man. It's just because that's what we're comfortable with or what we're recognizing it as. I don't necessarily think that people are seeing a Bigfoot that looks more man-like. I think to them it's more comfortable to them.
Very true. And I will sidetrack that just slightly so that maybe your point will make sense to the listeners. If you take your thumb and hold it out in front of you, that's your focal point of vision. Everything outside of the thumb that you're looking at as you're holding it out in front of you is not in focus. Your brain adapts that as the image, but what you're looking at is your line of sight is really no bigger than the size of your thumb that's clear and focused. And if you're seeing a creature like that and you're staring at its head, is the rest of what your brain putting together, its legs, its hands, its arms, the hair length, and it's calculating all of that even though you didn't actually focus on that part of the body. And part of your point last night was with the hock legs of a dog man, and I'm doing air quotes with the dog man. People say, well, it had hock legs. Well, did it actually, or did your mind put it together as you're looking at something you don't know what it is? You see ears on top of the head, but did you actually scan the whole body physically? And the witness may say, oh, yes, I definitely did. But in so many of these encounters, it's such a short period of time that your focal vision point may not have seen everything as clearly as looking at it directly.
There's a reason why eyewitness reporting in crimes is always scrutinized. Because it was perfect, there'd be no mistakes.
Very true.
And we know in a court of law how many times have convictions been overturned because eyewitnesses have been wrong. And because you think you see something doesn't necessarily mean that's what you saw, and it happens in every day. Same thing, because you thought you heard something doesn't mean that's what you heard, right? With any of our senses, we could almost say beyond the same thing. And I guess we have to start applying that kind of philosophy and thought into the research. And, I wish I was more trained in the psychology of this stuff, and maybe we can talk to an expert on that at some point in this legacy of podcasting. But I think, we're asking some right questions here. Just, where will the answers take us? That's what we have to be forward thinking about. With these Bigfoot sightings, rather they're paranormal of nature, traditional in nature, the fact is people are reporting them, and we owe it to them to be respectful, but also do our due diligence of investigators to really scrutinize the information being put in front of us.
Absolutely.
No, I'll totally
And
agree.
One thing is that there's an individual, Dr. Aaron G. Filler. He wrote a really great book called The Upright Ape, in which he had found that there was a spinal column of a chimp, and the chimp was actually adapted to walk upright.
Huh.
So apes could walk upright if they really were adapted to do so. You have to read the book, though. It's a really interesting book.
And what was the name of that book again, Henry?
The Upright Ape.
Yeah.
Well, take an example of the discovery of the Billy ape back in the early 1990s. And it was speculated that this creature was real, but it was finally discovered, and it's bipedal, and their average height for the male is 6 foot. But they walk bipedally because of the environment, and it's so much swampies that they keep their body out of the water and have adapted to walk bipedally. Well, they're out there. This was all thought to be a complete fallacy that these creatures don't exist, and it was just a cryptid, and it's in lore, and here it was discovered. So there are small populations of bipedal creatures, and this is the newest discovery. I believe that was 1992 or 1993 that they discovered that.
I want to say 96, but I could be wrong.
Oh, might be. Yeah, it might be.
But
either
still,
way, it was, yeah.
Less than, how many years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
Less than 30 years ago, we discovered a new species of, or not a new, well, they say a subspecies of chimpanzee, but it let's just for, our sake say another species of ape. Like, that's a pretty big deal.
That's a huge deal.
And it's been just a little over 100 years where we validated the mountain gorilla, right? So we're really not that far out of the advances of still discovering new species are discovered all the time. But when you're talking about large mammals, that's pretty significant. Like, what's the next great discovery going to be? And, it could very well be what we call Bigfoot. And maybe it's not a discovery, but a rediscovery or an offset of something that once was.
Mm-hmm.
That's the $1 million question. Actually, it's probably worth a lot more than that now with inflation. But
exactly, it's much more.
That's a big deal.
Just look at how many ancient species of human have been found in recent years as well and discovered.
It's really changing the way we think about human lineage.
True.
Mm-hmm.
You slightly touched on the surface of the subject, Sean, of maybe it's a rediscovery. Mm-hmm. So I want to quickly bring up the Gigantopithecus. Oh, it was in China, and humans and animals went across the land bridge to North America. What the hell was wrong with North America? Why were there not creatures that were already living here and did not have to migrate?
Well, that's a good point.
What made North America so different than from Asia, where these creatures were discovered? It could very well be that North America continent had its own version of creatures that never did come across the land bridge. They just evolved here. And so maybe the Gigantopithecus creature may be similar to this Bigfoot creature, or one of the same. It could have similar genomes. We don't know that clearly because we'll have to make that big discovery. But I hear that argument brought up so many times that, well, the humans had to cross the land bridge to get to North America. Why? What made Asia so much different that only life would develop there and not in North America?
Well, that's a good question.
Same latitude and longitude, so it's not a temperate condition. It's always been my question, and I've never heard anybody address that. It's always been, nope, came across the land bridge. Okay, well, it's very possible, and I won't keep rehashing that point, but it's very possible that these creatures could have been living and growing in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio and everywhere. Great Northwest.
No, that's a really good point you make there. And I don't know if I have an answer to that one, Henry. Do you?
I got nothing.
Look at that. You stumped the
I
Bigfoot
stumped the
encyclopedia.
May. Nice. I will be taking my tinfoil medal and wearing it proudly.
Well, that's not happened very often in the recollection of things that I can.
Very true.
But,
the hearty handshake, the pat on the back, and the warm glow of victory. That's what I've got.
You know, stepping back, I didn't even know Ancient MonsterQuest was a thing until you posted about it, Henry.
Yeah. I must have been one of the only ones that actually pimped it out, as it were.
Yeah, you had to have been, because if it wasn't for you, I'd have missed this, and it was a really good program. I thought it was well done, but again, I like shows like that as opposed to the docudramas. You know, I like the stories told, and I don't really care so much for the... I mean, I watch shows like Finding Bigfoot, and because, you know, my friends are on it, and I like to support the work my friends are doing. But as a, you know, holistic piece to solving the puzzle, it's not much, but, you know, it beats bowling or golf, so I will watch that all day, any day, over some of the other viewing options, but I just wanted to say thanks for pointing that out. And
Sure.
Keep that kind of stuff coming my direction, because that's the stuff that we need to do, like serious research. And when you run out of really good documentaries to watch, because to be honest, there are not a hell of a lot of them, but when you run out of them, do me a favor, folks, and pick up a book. And if you can borrow one from Henry May, no, I'm kidding. But if you want a recommendation, you can ask Henry. Go to our Facebook page, Sasquatch Experience on Facebook. And, you know, Henry, I think every so often you should put out a book recommendation, and why, because if anybody, you know, we don't call you the encyclopedia of Bigfootery for nothing. Like, you've got the knowledge because you've done the reading, you've done that work, and I know if I have a question, I just pick up the phone or chat up Henry, and he's got an answer for me relatively quick. But the books, there's a lot more information you're going to get from books than you are from television.
That's true.
And so much depth.
Even if it's on Kindle,
Hey,
doesn't matter. Just read it.
Read, that's right. Go to websites, read some of these sighting reports, educate yourself, and grow yourself into the knowledge of the field, because if you don't, you're not really doing yourself justice. Don't take anything I say for granted. Henry, Vance, none of us, go out and do your own research and make up your own mind, and then talk to like-minded people, or even opposing viewpoints, because together, when you bring it all to the table, you'll really start being able to hash out some pretty cool hypothesis and some pretty cool ideas that maybe one day, if we're lucky, we'll have answers to. Again, find us at Twitter, Squatch EXP. Yes, it's a little different. Facebook, Sasquatch Experience, or go to our new website, SasquatchExperience.com. And for any questions, comments, or concerns, email us, info@SasquatchExperience.com. Guys, do you have anything else for tonight?
Well,
I'm going to save everything for the next show.
Okay.
Why spill it all now? No, save some keep the people wanting more.
There you go. Henry, what do you got?
Well, I got my copy of The Legend of Boggy Creek last week, and it's an amazing Blu-ray restoration. I mean, it's just like watching the movie for the first time. The George Eastman Museum was the one that Pamela Pierce Barcelow contracted to actually restore her father's movie, because now she owns the copyright to it. So you can't see any bootleg versions on YouTube anymore of that movie, because she's managed to have them taken all down, thankfully, because she owns the copyright now.
Yeah.
It's like her version is the definitive version. It's the best version, and she doesn't want anybody else profiting from what was her father's movie.
Absolutely.
So now she owns copyright.
Was there any extra scenes in that movie that you don't remember from before?
No, it's the same movie. It's just been completely cleaned up and restored.
Why
There's
the
no
hell
extra scene.
do I not remember the scene of the guys down by the creek before the attack at the house?
I don't know. Maybe your version didn't have that scene in it. Who knows?
So there you go. So maybe they're see? So it may not be new for you, but it may be new for me because I had not seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got the last copy of the DVD I have is from, what's that called? Cult Classics or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally like somebody made a bootleg version of it all that time ago. I have to get a copy of 4K of Legend of Boggy Creek. I went and saw it at the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, where they shot The Blob, by the way. It was a really great experience, but for some reason it stood out to me that I didn't see that before. And it was pretty cool. But thanks for shedding some light on that I am crazy and it wasn't anything new. That makes me feel good.
Uh-huh.
All right. Henry, where can folks find you at?
Well, they can find me on Facebook, Henry B. May the 4th, or Southeast Sasquatch Association, or you can find me on Sasquatch Experience. And if you have a question for me, you can't get a hold of me, get a hold of Sasquatch Experience on Facebook, and they'll pass along to me.
Absolutely. That's our guarantee. Vance, where can folks find you?
Oh, a lot of times folks can find me stuck in traffic somewhere or at the grocery store.
You do live in
But
Chicago.
if that's true, if they want to find me on Facebook, though, it's Vance A. Alpha A. Nesbitt. And that's Facebook, or you can hit me up on Instagram, Vance_Nesbitt_NRML.
Folks, you can find me everywhere. I'm Sean Forker. I'm my name. I don't change it for anybody. I'm easy to find. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Find the show at Instagram at Sasquatch Experience. Again, on Twitter, Squatch EXP. And on Facebook and our website, Sasquatch Experience, SasquatchExperience.com. Until next week, Henry, why don't you tell your folks your final phrase?
Y'all be good or be good at it.
And you didn't forget it this week. See you next week, folks. Thanks for listening. Thank you for coming along to this week's event.